Shalom, everybody. This is Olivier with the Shalom in Messiah Ministries. And here we are again, giving you the best possible prophecy update we can on the current situation in the Middle East and specifically around the events that are taking place around Israel. And we're going to talk about this in a couple of minutes. I wanted to, first of all, invite you to visit our website at shalominmessiah.com. This is where you can connect with us. We have a new section on the website called Israel News that will give you timely, I don't want to say daily because it could be more than once a day or it could be once a week. It's going to be timely information about news about Israel that you can trust, which is something that is becoming a rare commodity nowadays. We don't know who we can trust. So go to Israel News on shalomandmessiah.com and you'll get up-to-date latest breaking news about Israel. Also, you can connect with us on the Connect tab. You can get all the different things from our ministry. And as always, I want to thank the many of you who are supporting our ministry and helping us. And right now we are in the process of raising funds to help the IDF and to send some specific gifts of specific supplies for the IDF. So if it's something that you feel the Lord is calling you to do, if that's something that you're interested in doing to help us, go to shalomandmessiah.com, go to donate, and then there's a tab when you get there that says Israel Ministries. There's General and Israel Ministries. If you go to Israel Ministries, that donation will go 100% to help the Israel IDF. Right now, we have specific purchases that we're making, and we're kind of counting on you to help. And so far, the response has been wonderful. Enough about this. I want to get into today's program. So every time I have this particular guest on my channel, I always learn so much because John has so many connections that he brings some fresh perspective on the situation. So my guest today is John Haller. John, thank you for joining me.
Always glad to be with you, Olivier.
So John, we don't even know where to start, but yesterday, as we all watched from wherever we are in the world, we all watched the situation unravel in Iran for the second time now. Shot missiles on Israel. I believe about 180 of them. Now, this was the second attack, direct attack, not proxy attack, direct attack on Israel. First one, I believe, was on was it April 13th?
That's
and,
correct.
And 99% of the missiles were intercepted. It looks like yesterday it was pretty close to that. So your first reaction, your thoughts on when you were watching that unravel yesterday, what was going through your mind?
Well, the first thing was that it was the attack on April 13th that had about, I think it was around 400, but it was a combination of missiles, drones, and rockets. And so a missile will get from, depending on its speed and its capabilities, roughly 12 minutes from Iran to Israel. The drones, though, take hours. So Israel had a pretty good idea that everything was coming back on April 13th. They had several hours warning, and they had time to get their system. And there was a very coordinated response. There was, Jordan shot some down, Saudi Arabia shot some down, the United States, I think the UK has a unit out in Cyprus that shot some things down. So it was a total bust from Iran's standpoint. There was one person killed. I believe a falling missile that had been broken up in air fell and killed a young. Well, that was the one in April, killed one young Arab girl with a falling debris. Or it could have been a missile that hit, I'm not sure. The one yesterday was 180 ballistic missiles, the ones that get there in 12 minutes, so Israel had much less time to respond. But it was really a pretty amazing response. They shot down a lot. And I think a lot of people don't really understand exactly how Iron Dome Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 work together.
Yeah. There's really three systems that intercept. So if you have a little information on that, just briefly describe those three systems.
So Iron Dome is for more short range missiles and rockets, maybe up to 50 miles. That from their launch to where they're going to land.
Before I forget, on the Iron Dome, to give people a perspective, the precision of Iron Dome, friends, is picture somebody with a gun in their hand shooting at another person with a gun in their hand and hitting the bullet. Is that a fair description?
It's a totally accurate description.
Think about this: a bullet hitting another bullet.
I know it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's and they do it, and it's got a above 95% success rate. But I think a lot of people forget how Iron Dome works. Iron Dome doesn't shoot down every rocket or every missile or every mortar or every drone. What they do is they have algorithms that analyze the launch angle, speed, and then they calculate almost immediately, instantaneously through these algorithms, where that rocket or missile is going to land. If it's going to land in the open area, don't waste a $50,000 or $100,000 Iron Dome missile taking it down. So the propaganda side of Iran, Hezbollah, the Iranian alliance against Israel, will say, oh, look, Iron Dome is failing. Iron Dome is failing. Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 operate the same way. Now, Arrow 3 is a longer range, which was probably used last night. And by the same token, they analyze all of the ballistic missiles. And Israel, I'm sure, has plotted in the specifics of everything in Israel so that the algorithms will calculate, okay, is it going to hit an open space? Is it going to hit a building? If it's going to hit a building, is the building unoccupied? Are they hitting some kind of asset that's important, like at a military base? So there were a lot of missiles that appeared to explode last night, but I think there was some very clever editing on the part of the people that are the enemies of Israel and part of the Iranian alliance. And what they did was they showed missiles hitting, but they didn't show that a lot of those missiles had been struck by Arrow missiles.
So it's again, to compare that to somebody shooting with a gun, it would be an enemy shooting with a magazine of 15 bullets, and they would shoot to kind of distract the target, in the air, on the left, on the right, to make noise and to shoot and to distract the target, and then eventually shoot at the target when the target is distracted. But Israel has the ability to determine those distractions ahead of time, so they will not waste any of the Iron Dome. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So, I mean, yesterday were 180 appears. And when the initial thing started, I had friends of me sending live videos to me from Jerusalem and other places around Israel.
Yeah, I got some of those too. Yeah.
Showing, here, look at these missiles coming in. Where's Iron Dome and sirens? And then, for example, our Tom Hughes and our mutual friend Roddy, I'm sure you know Roddy.
Yeah.
He says, "Oh, the sirens just stopped," and that may be that the missiles are still coming, but the system may say, "Okay, look, you in Jerusalem, that missile's not a threat to you anymore. There's no missiles that are a threat to you anymore, so the sirens are going to stop." The system is that good. But if Arrow, Iron Dome, all these things combined are like 90, 95%, 99% effective. Let's say Arrow is 95% effective. That means yesterday there's going to be 8 or 10 missiles that get through. And some missiles did, and the system's not perfect anyway. So they're not going to bother with missiles that aren't going to hit anything of significance, and they're not going to get all of them. And that's just the way it goes.
And that's just the Iron Dome. What are the other two?
Arrow 2 and Arrow 3.
How different? How are they different from the Iron Dome?
Well, I think Arrow 2 and 3 are more sophisticated, particularly Arrow 3, because it's going to be ballistic missiles are moving much faster than rockets that are coming, say, from Hamas or Hezbollah. Is
Arrow 3 the one that goes as far as 2,400 kilometers?
That's correct. Yeah, so that's 2,400 kilometers would be 1,400 miles. So Tehran is about let's just say it's 900 miles from Jerusalem. So Arrow 3 would be intercepting those missiles. Now, there's been some development. There's some question as to whether Iran is claiming that they used some of their newer hypersonic missiles. Those missiles go very, very fast. We're talking Mach 5 to Mach 8. That's Mach 5. Mach is the speed of sound. So 5 times the speed of sound, which would be, let's just say 4,000 miles an hour to 8 or 9 times the speed of sound. So you're talking something that's, coming in at 6, 7,000, 8,000 miles per hour. And shooting that down, I mean, this is not like shooting a bullet down. It's like shooting a turbocharged, sped up bullet down. And it's still effective. They were able to take out some of those missiles. Now, I don't know the details of what missiles landed, what missiles they didn't take out. I mean, those things haven't been released yet.
And they might not even release it because some of it might be sensitive information.
That's correct. We may never know. So you're going to see pictures on media, particularly on the pro-Iranian, pro-Muslim media, that Israel failed. They had massive attack. I mean, there's some talk about, they said they took, and by the way, they take videos from like Ukraine, Russia, and they say, oh, look what happened in Israel. So it's hard to even verify the video as being authentic and actually occurring in Israel in the last 24 hours. It's a very difficult thing to analyze.
Yeah.
But look, Israel did very well. There was no Israeli killed. So attack in April, one young Arab girl was killed. I don't know if she lived in Israel proper or not. And then yesterday, an Arab man was killed by the remnants of a falling ballistic missile. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the video by now.
In Jericho.
It just struck and crushed him.
Now, you're talking about those missiles, the different kind of missiles that Iran is shooting at Israel. How many do we think they have, and where do they get them? Do they build their own?
They build their own. They become very sophisticated in that. Sophisticated enough that Russia has been purchasing missiles for use in the Ukrainian theater from Iran. So there's been sort of the cementing of the Iranian-Russian alliance with regard to missiles and drones. So Iran's manufacturing the missiles. They even moved some of the the drone manufacturing over to one of the Central Asian Stan republics, Tajikistan or Kurdistan, or not Tajikistan, Turkmenistan. It's in Turkmenistan. They put a plant. And part of that is they want to supply Russia. So, by the way, there's kind of an uneasy alliance between Russia and Iran. There's a corridor up in the Armenia, Azerbaijan area that Russia and Iran are on different sides of that issue.
Yeah,
so,
you're starting to make it sound like Ezekiel 38.
Well, yeah, the alliance is there, but it's kind of look, Russia and Iran have historically not gotten along. There was I think Russia came down in the early 1800s, invaded, and there was a big treaty that just decimated the Iranian rights in that area. So there was a big article in the Tehran Times a couple of weeks ago about Iran has red lines, even with respect to Russia.
Yeah, but John, I know, and that even if Russia and Iran are not best friends on any given day, when it comes to the annihilation of Israel, they just work together. There are many people in the world who would not do anything would not associate to other people, group, other countries, or other organization, but as Satan is pushing this agenda of hatred and destruction of Israel, he's making the irrational look very rational. And there are people that would not agree on anything. But when it comes to killing the Jews, let's work together. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces to this. So let's just sort of summarize. Israel is facing at least a 7 front war, although I think it's more like 8, 9, or 10. So you have the
So let's give the 7 real quick, just by name.
You have Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Iran. That's 7.
That's 6.
6. I'm sure I'm forgetting one. Did I say? I said Syria.
Did you say
you have the West Bank?
I was going to say
area.
Excuse me, the West Bank. What are you talking about?
Well, Judea, Samaria.
I'll
use West Bank in the sense so that the uneducated people that listen to this podcast can understand what we're talking about.
West Bank is what people call is the Judea and Samaria. I was picking on you, John. I know. Yeah.
I'm not offended by
so
that.
those are the 7 fronts, and so Netanyahu yesterday or today, I think it was yesterday, said Iran made a very big mistake, and they're going to pay dearly for that. What do you think? What do you think is Israel's going to do? And do you think they're going to wait a long time? I don't think they're going to wait very long. But do you think they're going to do something like they did with Hezbollah when they're going to maybe destroy their communication system, where they, with what they did with the ingenious thing with the pagers and the walkie-talkies, to the point where they cannot communicate, and then get rid of a few of their leaders and then attack? Or is it going to be something different? Do you have any idea what you think it's going to happen?
I would expect the main targets would be nuclear facilities, nuclear-related facilities, perhaps what we would call a decapitation strike, taking out some of the upper echelon leadership, up to and including the Ayatollah Khamenei, who has moved to a very secure bunker. But we know that didn't protect. That didn't protect Nasrallah in Beirut.
So Israel can actually go subterranean missiles. They can go through the ground.
They have bunker busting bombs. Now, how deep those can go is some question. I saw an interview recently. I think it was on Dan Senor's "Call Me Back" podcast, and it was actually on Barry Weiss's. Whatever her podcast is called, somebody was being interviewed and said he had been in southern Lebanon a number of years ago, and they took him to a decommissioned Hezbollah bunker tunnel system in southern Lebanon. It was 300 feet underground.
Whoa.
And the problem with the terrain there is, in Gaza, it's sandy soil, and so it's a little bit difficult for them to build strong tunnels, but in southern Lebanon, it's rocky, mountainous terrain.
Right.
And they drill through bedrock. So drilling through bedrock, you don't have to put in a lot of the superstructure support, because everything's
it's there. It's built in. It's built in.
But these are 300 feet underground in some cases. The same problem that Israel had in Gaza. Some of these bunkers tunnels were beyond the reach of even the most sophisticated bunker busting bombs. So Nasrallah, when they took him out in Beirut last week, he was in a bunker. And now initially when I saw that destruction, where they took out about 8 buildings, I think it was, using 85 tons of bunker busting bombs and missiles, and they took out a small neighborhood, I thought that maybe they would never find Nasrallah's body. But now the word is that he was actually suffocated, because when the bombs hit, they sucked all of the oxygen out of the bunker or tunnel system or whatever he was in. The same thing could happen with regard to Khamenei if it's done the right way. There was an interview we remember Ahmadinejad, who was the president of Iran for 8 years.
Right.
We used to call him, if you had trouble with his name, Ahmadinejad, we would always call him, "I'm mad about jihad," would be a good way to.
Yeah. The way I used to call him, almost like this, I used to call him, "I'm in a jihad."
Yeah, that's even better. I like that.
I'm in a jihad. Yes, I'm in a jihad.
It sounds better too with that little French accent thing you got going there too.
I don't have a French. You must be here. You must be hearing me with an accent. I don't have a French accent.
That's right. Well, it's just maybe the way it's coming through. It might be the headphones I have. But anyway, so Ahmadinejad was talking the other day. He did an interview and he said, "Well, we had set up a special task force here in Iran to root out the Mossad agents, to find where, because Israel has this incredible intelligence. I mean, how do they know where all these people are all the time? And
Amazing.
I don't think we know the half of it, to be honest with you. So, and then Ahmadinejad said, and then we found out that the person that we had pointed to be head of the Mossad hunting unit was himself a Mossad agent. Oops, that didn't work out too well for them, did it? So, but the pager thing was an incredible thing. So back in the early part of this year, Hezbollah, Nasrallah said, stop using cell phones, put them in a metal box.
Right.
Then there was a series of videos released by Hezbollah on their Al-Manar website. We are blinding Israel. We're taking out their, at Mount Meron and the Unit 8200 up in the Galilee headquarters. That's Israel's sort of cybersecurity hacking technical unit, small unit. We're blinding Israel. We're blinding Israel. Well, then what happened when the pagers went off? A lot of guys were blinded because they picked up their pager and it beeped twice. So they picked it up like, oh, what's going on here? To look at it more closely. And there were hundreds of them blinded. There were thousands of them taken out of commission. A lot of them had their hands blown off. And I know it sounds cruel, but listen, I saw somebody post, I don't know if it was an IDF person or just somebody in Israel, said, listen, you wanted to be a martyr. You joined Hezbollah because you wanted to be a martyr. But understand, with the nature of this attack, you are not going to be a martyr. You're never going to be a martyr. You have no hands, you cannot see, and you will live all your rest of your days with the knowledge that you're not going to be a martyr, but you're going to be a big burden to your family. Now, that sounds really cool, but I think we don't really, here in the West, we don't really understand the Middle Eastern mindset and what Israel is really facing.
Yeah, so, another thing that I want to add to that, because I was doing an interview, I think it was last week or so. We're talking about just the response to commentary on the pager attack, and then the idea was advanced that this is a little taste of terrorism. Give them a taste of their own medicine, and I thought no. You know what? I don't agree. It is not terrorism. Because if it was terrorism, they would have put a big charge in the pagers and it would have exploded and probably killed 2 or 3 or 10 people around them. And they could do that and not caring about the results as long as we can, stop the bad people. But this was done with surgical precision where, you and I saw that video. And many people saw it when that man was in a fruit market at a stand, and he's picking up some fruit, and then one of the Hezbollah terrorists, and this pager explodes, and he falls to the ground, and the woman in the hijab next to him looks at it and walks away. She was maybe 3 feet away, so terrorism would have just killed her and anybody around. I
don't even think it bruised the apples in the bin by where the guy was standing.
There you go. So it was really, to me, it's more like psychological warfare with surgical precision. In that sense, a deeper message. And I wonder if Iran. Do you think Iran right now is getting like, okay, let's not use anything electronic, for communication?
Yeah, actually, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, at least from the intelligence sources that I follow, they have said that it has been published throughout the Iranian military apparatus to stop using electronic devices. Now, that's kind of interesting because what happened in Lebanon is kind of a picture, because so they get rid of the pagers and they like, okay, everybody switch to your walkie-talkie and other devices. And so at the funerals the next day of these guys who'd been killed in the pager attack, the walkie-talkies and other devices start exploding. I think even more people were killed in that attack. And then they say, okay, let's go to paper and in-person meetings. So what happened? This is ingenious. One of the guys, Olivier, who was a very wanted terrorist, been around since the 1980s, participated in some of the attacks on U.S. troops back in the early 1980s. He had gone to the hospital. And so now Israel knows, with their intelligence network, this guy is being tracked physically They knew where he was. They took him out. And then they decided to have a big meeting of the Al Radwan Brigade in Beirut in person in a basement of a big building. Israel took out the building and killed probably somewhere the leader of the Al Radwan Brigade plus another 9, 10, 11 upper leadership. So when you look at the upper command structure of Hezbollah, there were in the upper 3 levels, there was only one guy left and Nasrallah. And then they got Nasrallah and took out some others. And when they're taking out these guys, they're getting Iranian Revolutionary Guard liaisons between the Iranian government and the Hezbollah government in Lebanon. So I will say this, I've said this a number of times. This was the most ingenious, technologically sophisticated, psychologically sophisticated attack in military history of humanity. It was that good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like the Trojan horse times 10,000.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, then, but I also, you and I, our audiences know, you and I have, we use a biblical lens, biblical worldview, and we don't want to forget that there is this promise from God that Israel will never be forsaken, never be destroyed. And I was listening to you at the beginning of the podcast here, and I want to read this one verse to our audience. It's and we all know it, but I think now more than ever, especially in light of yesterday and what might be coming up in the next few days, is Psalm 121 verse 4. Behold, he who keeps Israel will not slumber and will not sleep. And the one who keeps Israel, I mean, all the technology that Israel has invented and developed and mastered is wonderful from a human perspective. But we have to accept that what happened yesterday, it was a miracle because of the way that they responded. I mean, everything went, the orchestration of all the 3 defense system, and as you explained in the beginning of the podcast, it's still short of a miracle. I mean, it's just incredible that it happened on April 13th. People at 99.9. So I am confident that God has His hand in all this. I mean, we know He does, but it's just like mind-boggling to me.
I think that's true. I mean, actually, what you're seeing is kind of a slow rolling miracle or series of miracles with the taking out, with the operations in Lebanon that took out the upper command structure, made it very difficult for them to communicate, and it had to be a psychological blow to them. Now, look, it didn't eradicate Hezbollah. We got to be honest about that. And Hezbollah still has a very significant capability. Now, there's some talk that Israel has degraded Hezbollah's capability of launching rockets and missiles by a factor of 50%. I pray that that's true. That's what I've heard. But I saw an interview with Miri Eisen. She's I think in Israeli politics, she would be kind of a centrist, but she's the director of the Center for Counterterrorism at one of the universities there along the coast. And she's very, very intelligent. She's a retired colonel. She's been involved in the government and everything and defense analyst. And she said, listen, don't think that this is over. I mean, look, this was a great victory, but if Hezbollah has 75,000 rockets that they can send, that's amazing. Now, what Israel's done is they've gotten wind of rocket launches and they've gone into and taken out the rocket launchers in advance. And then when you see that happen from the IDF videos, you see a lot of secondary explosions, which means it's hitting a house, what appears to be a house, it's hitting a tunnel entrance, and then there's all these massive explosions.
Well, that's why they hide their ammunition in public places. They don't care about civilians. We've known that for years.
Well, I actually been paying rent to people to put a cruise missile in a room in their house.
They what?
Hezbollah has paid rent for people. Hey, we'll pay you money if we can store a cruise missile or two in your bed, extra bedroom.
So now when just to again bring perspective to our audience, you said it is believed that Israel as destroyed up to 50% of Hezbollah's capacity, the weapon reserve. When this thing started, it's believed that they have about 150,000 missiles.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult number. So, you asked me about Iran earlier. There's some talk that Iran has somewhere around a number of years ago, it was estimated they had 3,500 ballistic missiles. They may have many more now. And we also know that since the war started on October 8th, the day after the October 7th massacre down in the Gaza envelope, the Gaza district, Hezbollah has launched before the last couple of weeks, they've launched about 8,000, 9,000 rockets. Now it's up to about 15,000. And I think a lot of people say, oh, well, that means we've cut their capacity by 10%. And that's not necessarily true. That assumes that Hezbollah and Iran have not replenished any of what they fired.
Exactly.
And so it's a moving target. And when I said degraded their capacity by 50%, they degraded their capacity by 50% to launch missiles, not necessarily took out the missiles, because a missile needs a launcher. And one of the things that's always been true about Lebanon and Hezbollah is that they've had about one launcher for every 2 rockets. And what that means is they were always planning to do a massive barrages into Israel. So the concern has been Hezbollah is going to launch 6,000 missiles at a time. And Iron Dome, it can't keep up with it. It's just not possible. That will be a huge problem. But we have not seen that yet. And with the huge attack yesterday, I mean, we all have our red alert apps.
Right.
And it was shocking yesterday, the attack almost about 24 hours ago now. All of Israel was under a warning. Everybody was told to go to a bomb.
Tel Aviv, Haifa. I mean, you're not talking about the edge or north or Gaza. You're talking about very populated areas. I mean, my phone was it kept going on red alert. For those of you who do not know what red alert is, and I have no skin in the game, it's just an app you can get on the phone called Red Alert, and then you set it up, and then basically it will tell you every time there is a missile launched or there's an alert in Israel for people to respond and go into shelter. And yesterday, I had to charge my phone halfway through the day because I was losing all the power on my phone because it was going on and on and on, all day long.
Yeah, I had the same problem yesterday. My phone actually ran out of juice yesterday afternoon when I was on the golf course. It was horrible.
Yes. I feel so sorry for you that your phone ran out of juice when you
understand my suffering. But so I use an app called Zofar, Tzofar, like shofar.
Right.
I'm sure that's probably how it's pronounced. And I turn off the notifications, but it still buzzes. I turn off the ding because it would just ding all the time.
But it vibrates.
But yeah, and then yesterday, what happened though which was good because it shows the success of the Lebanon operation over the past couple of weeks. There was no missiles, rockets, very many coming in from Lebanon, because I think what Iran hoped to do at some point, they're going to be a coordinated attack. You're going to have them coming across the border in Gaza, kidnapping people. You're going to have them coming through the tunnels up in Lebanon and kidnapping people. They've even found tunnels from areas down in Judea. They found tunnels into Israeli populated areas within Judea and Samaria. That's another problem. And so the Radwan Brigade was up having a meeting in Beirut last week when they took everybody out in that one big attack. They brought down like a 6-story building. They were planning a attack in Galilee like happened in Gaza. That was their plan. And that was all, in fact, what Gaza did, what Hamas did in Gaza was always what Hezbollah planned to do in Lebanon.
So when do you think Israel is going to hit Iran? And I mean, you think they're going to wait
What,
weeks,
when are
days?
they going to do it? So the interesting thing is the timing of these things. You know, last year it was a Jewish holiday Shabbat that
And it
Gaza
was Yom
attacked.
Kippur. It was Yom Kippur. It was 50. It was the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War.
Right. And so we're entering that period of Feast of Trumpets to Yom Kippur, which is on, I think, October the 12th.
Today, tonight starts Rosh Hashanah. Any of you watching online, by the way, if you're Jewish or if you celebrate the Jewish New Year, Lashana Tova Tiketevu, may your name be inscribed. This is today starts the Jewish New Year 5785. So just side note.
My friend Jonathan Feldstein sent me a message this morning. Let's hope that 5785 is better.
That's right. Now,
and by the way, this stuff does not, I probably should do this. I talked at a conference last weekend. One of the things I talked about at the end was, well, I think the title of my talk was, it's getting really biblical, because I do think it's getting biblical in terms of the unfolding, the sort of slow rolling, faster rolling unfolding of things that are prophetically significant. I've been talking about for 25, 30 years.
right.
Now it's like I could do a 8-hour program every day
Yeah.
talking about them if I want to go into detail.
But when would you go golfing?
Well, during the day, so I would stay up all night and work.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't go golfing on Israeli time. I guess that's the. I'll do interviews with people at 2 or 3 a.m. I tell them in Israel, because they're 7 hours difference.
Right. Right.
And so it's hard to get them to get all that schedule coordinated. But last week was very interesting. The Torah portion for Shabbat, as all of this was unrolling, it came up at the UN. As you remember, Bibi Netanyahu standing at the podium at the UN
On Friday.
almost a year to the day after he said that we're on the verge of a historical change in the Middle East. Well, didn't quite work out the way that he thought a year ago, because they thought they're going to normalize with Saudi Arabia.
Right.
But this year he talked about the blessing and the curse, and he held up maps. He held up the map of blessing where everybody's going to trade routes through, which he talked about a year ago, that the G20 meeting had put into place a thing about a Middle East European trade corridor, or India European Middle East European trade corridor.
Right.
That was the blessing, is going to go through Saudi Arabia and Israel and avoid Iran and those other things. And he said the curse, and he had a map with the black map with the Shia crescent blackened from Iran to Iraq to Syria to Lebanon. And this is the problem, but he didn't do anything with Turkey. And Turkey is a very significant player in these end times. And it's
Ezekiel
changing as
38,
well.
yeah.
It's changing as well. And in fact, you need to watch the symbolic things that happen. So in Istanbul over the last year or two, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, a radical Islamist, a Muslim Brotherhood guy, has converted what historically, and I don't want to get into theology of Orthodox Church versus evangelical and all that other stuff, but what is acknowledged in the Muslim world as the largest Christian church in the world,
The Sophia,
Hagia Sophia,
Hagia Sophia, yes.
has been turned into a mosque. And he tweeted just a month ago, look at the mosque that we now have in Istanbul near the famous Blue Mosque. They're on this sort of in the same plaza.
Right.
So watch that. And so what I think you're going to see is, I'm not sure how this plays out, but we have the ram and goat prophecy that I think may be unfolding in front of our eyes, to see attack from the West and Turkey against Iran to take out Iran. I think that's part of it. And then Turkey would sort of subsume Iran into its influence. So there's a lot going on. And then there's a lot we could talk about Syria, which has really been kind of quiet.
They've been kind of quiet because, yeah, that is very true.
but Russia has a lot of mercenaries there. But there was kind of interesting story. This comes from the Kiev Post a few months ago, and then about a month ago, Ukraine has sent special forces into Syria to kill Russian troops and into Sudan to kill Russian mercenary troops. Now, why would they do that? Because Russia sort of has the philosophy of Iran that Iran's philosophy is we will fight this battle to the last living Lebanese. We're not going to send our. Do you see any Iranian troops on the ground other than some leadership people? No. They're a proxy guy. Russia is similar to that, and Russia has been recruiting mercenary soldiers from these Arab militias in Syria and Sudan to bring into the Ukraine. So Ukraine sent special forces into Syria and Sudan to cut off the supply chain, I guess, is of mercenaries from those areas.
Right.
And that's something that we're just not really, there's not too many people talking about that. There are a lot of moving pieces to this, really. And I think we need to pay attention.
And then you have also a group within evangelicals who are seeing this as possibly Psalm 83 war unfolding. You and I have already discussed that in a previous podcast, and I've given my opinion that I don't think that Psalm 83 is a real war. But there's Ezekiel 38. There's all I know is that, and we need to wrap this up. But it's things are changing in the Middle East by the hour. I mean, things are moving by the hour, and as we wrap this up, John, I just want to remind our audience that now more than ever, we need to be on our knees to pray for Israel, and so we need to keep watching what's going on. We know that God is not going to forsake Israel. And I want to read, and I've read this before many times, but this to me is so encouraging when I go back to that verse, 2 verses in Jeremiah 31, and I'm sure you know where I'm going, John. 35 through 37. Thus says Yahweh, who gives the sun for light by day, and the statutes of the moon and the stars for light by night, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. Yahweh of hosts is his name. If these statutes are removed from before me, declares Yahweh, then the seed of Israel also will cease from being a nation before me forever. So, and then he goes on, if the heavens above can be measured and the foundation of the earth searched out below, then I will also reject all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, declares Yahweh. So I go to that scripture regularly because it is such a comforting reminder that God is not going. We cannot measure the universe. We cannot count the stars. We cannot measure the very depth of the earth. So it's God's way of saying, regardless of what Israel has done in the past, is doing today, which is the last part of that verse, for all that they have done to me, is God saying, I know Israel has been disobedient. I know Israel has made their mistake, but I have given my word, my character. It's because of my name that I will not allow Israel to be destroyed. And all those who go against Israel, that's, Zechariah 12:9, all those who go against Jerusalem will be disciplined, will be destroyed by God. So I implore you, as you watch this, pray for the safety of Israel, but more than anything, pray for the salvation of the Jewish people, because to have Jewish people in Israel safe and kept alive is one thing, but there is an eternal destiny awaiting all of us on this planet, Jews and Gentiles. And to get a Jewish person safe, away from harm from the enemy, is from a human perspective is the right thing to do. But beyond that, we have to do whatever we can to let the Holy Spirit use us to lead Jewish people to their Messiah, and not only keep him safe from the enemy at hand right now, physically, from Iran, from Hezbollah, from Hamas, but keep them safe from the ultimate enemy, who is Satan, who wants to kill their body and their soul, who wants to get them for all eternity away from God. And that can only be achieved by sharing with Jewish people the love of Messiah and the message of the gospel, that Jesus, Yeshua, is the Messiah, is the Savior of the world, and the Messiah of Israel. So, friends, be bold with your Jewish friends. Tell them what's coming. Tell them that God loves them, and tell them that more important than anything, it's their relationship with the living God of Israel that really matters. John, any final thoughts?
I would just encourage people to follow the Jewish readings each week. They seem to be very relevant. I don't think that's intentional. I don't know that anybody in Israel thought, hey, the Torah portion this week talks about the blessing and curse, although Prime Minister Netanyahu brought it up. And, we're living at this time where there's this, I don't know how to describe it. There's this shift, because I see an awakening on the part of a lot of Jewish people towards wanting Mashiach to come. I mean, I saw IDF units going into Lebanon talking about we are getting ready for Mashiach. And so we know there's a lot of issues associated with that, but
Right.
we also have to recognize that there's this awakening going on. Unfortunately, I think 7 or 8 IDF soldiers were killed in southern Lebanon today in an ambush.
Eight, yeah.
And but when you see the Prime Minister of Israel go in front of the United Nations of the world and speak in biblical terms about blessing and curse, should not evangelicals who are futurists and who believes all of this plays a role in Bible prophecy, should we not be paying even more attention to what's going on?
Absolutely. It's unfolding in front of our very eyes, and so that's what people need to realize. I mean, we are really watching end times biblical events unfolding, and again, to quote our friend John Markell, the world is not falling apart; it's coming together. I love that quote. I love that. Well, John, where can people find you?
Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube, or John Haller on YouTube. Just type my name in and go up in the upper right-hand corner, click on filters, and go down to upload date. That way you'll get the most recent stuff that we've put up. And then Real FBC on Rumble. And then I've got a lot of things coming up. I'm going to do a prophecy roundtable with Patrick Wood, who was at Fellowship Bible Chapel this past weekend. You ought to look up his talks. Scott Townsend, Britt Gillette, and I'm going to forget somebody. Me, Tom Hughes, Patrick Wood. Tom may not do it because I think Tom hopes to be in Israel at the time. But yeah, anyway, it'll be 4 or 5 of us on October 15th.
Yeah, I think Tom is going to be. He's flying to Israel. He was supposed to fly today, but I think he's flying on the 7th now. But so when I say where can people find you, I thought you were going to answer on a golf course.
Well, hopefully in the fairway or on the green on the golf course, not in the other,
not in the sand or in the water or whatever you call it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, Tom, thank you so much. Tom,
Thanks.
I'm calling you Tom. Sorry,
That's okay.
John. Thank you so much for bringing your knowledge of the Middle East and your perspective. Always appreciated. Until next time, be safe. I wish you a good game of golf next time you go, that you had a good score. And again, be blessed in Messiah, and see you next time. Shalom.